The morning started like any other Tuesday in Denver, Colorado. Lisa Morrison was teaching her third-grade class about the solar system when the sky began to change. At first, it looked like storm clouds gathering above the city. But these clouds were different. They moved in perfect circles and glowed with a strange blue light. Captain Jake Morrison was 50 miles away at Peterson Air Force Base when his radar screens went crazy. Red dots appeared everywhere, showing objects the size of football stadiums floating above Denver. The objects had no heat signature, made no sound, and appeared out of nowhere. "Sir, we have multiple unknown aircraft over Denver," reported Sergeant Amy Williams, her voice shaking. "They're not responding to any radio calls." Jake grabbed his binoculars and ran outside. What he saw made his blood run cold. Massive ships hung in the air above his sister's city. They were dark gray, almost black, with smooth surfaces that reflected no light. Each ship was at least 2 miles long and shaped like a giant teardrop. In Denver, people stopped what they were doing and stared at the sky. Some took pictures with their phones. Others ran for cover. Lisa Morrison gathered her students away from the windows and tried to keep them calm. "Don't worry, children," she said, though her own hands were shaking. "Everything will be okay." But everything was not okay. Without warning, beams of bright green light shot down from the ships. The beams didn't hurt anyone, but they created a strange buzzing sound that made everyone feel dizzy. The light covered the entire city in less than 10 minutes. People tried to run, but they couldn't move fast. The green light made them feel heavy and slow, like they were walking through thick water. Cars stopped working. Cell phones went dead. Even the radios in police cars stopped making noise. At Peterson Air Force Base, Jake watched in horror as Denver disappeared behind a wall of green energy. The energy field looked like a giant bubble that covered the whole city. Nothing could be seen inside it. "Get me the president," Jake shouted into his radio. "We need fighter jets over Denver right now." But when the first jets arrived, something impossible happened. Their missiles passed right through the energy field like it wasn't there. But the planes themselves bounced off like hitting a solid wall. The alien ships had created a barrier that let some things through but stopped others. Inside the energy field, Lisa and her students felt very tired. The green light made them want to sleep. One by one, the children sat down on the floor and closed their eyes. Lisa fought to stay awake, but it was like fighting against a powerful drug. All over Denver, the same thing was happening. People were falling asleep where they stood. In restaurants, offices, schools, and homes, everyone was being put to sleep by the alien light. High above the city, the alien ships began to change. Parts of their hulls opened up like flower petals, revealing dark spaces inside. Smaller ships, about the size of school buses, flew out of these openings. These smaller ships moved down into the sleeping city. The small alien ships used different colored lights, purple and yellow beams that could pick up sleeping humans and float them up into the air. Hundreds of people at a time were lifted from streets, buildings, and parks. They floated up like balloons, completely unconscious, into the waiting alien ships. Jake Morrison watched through powerful telescopes as his sister's city was emptied of people. Every man, woman, and child in Denver was being taken. He tried to radio for help, but all he got was static. The aliens were blocking all communications in and out of the area. "Sir, we have the president on the line," said Sergeant Williams. President Amanda Wells's voice came through clearly. "Captain Morrison, what's the situation?" "Madam President, Denver is under attack by unknown forces. They've created some kind of energy barrier around the city, and they're taking people. All the people." "Taking them where?" Jake looked up at the alien ships through his telescope. The smaller ships were returning to the larger ones filled with sleeping humans. "I think they're putting them inside those ships, ma'am." For 3 hours, the alien ships worked without stopping. They took every living person from Denver, over 700,000 people. They took babies from hospitals, elderly people from nursing homes, and everyone in between. The city became completely empty except for pets and wild animals. When the last human was taken, the ships began to rise higher into the sky. The green energy field started to fade, and Jake could see Denver again. But it wasn't the same Denver. The city looked dead and empty. Streetlights still worked, but there were no people anywhere. As the alien ships climbed higher, one of them sent out a message. It came through every radio, television, and computer screen that still worked. The message appeared in perfect English, Spanish, and dozens of other languages. Your species shows potential. These specimens will serve the greater galactic order. Do not attempt to follow or interfere. Your planet will be evaluated for full processing within 2 standard cycles. Then the ships disappeared, not slowly, not with any flash of light.
One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone, as if they had never existed at all. Jake Morrison stood on the roof of Peterson Air Force Base, looking toward the empty city where his sister had lived and worked. Denver was still
there, but Denver was gone. The buildings, roads, and parks remained, but the soul of the city had been stolen. Within hours, the world knew what had happened. News teams flew helicopters over the empty city. Soldiers moved in to search every building. They found pets wandering the streets looking for their owners. They found meals half-eaten on tables. They found cars stopped in the middle of roads with the doors still open, but they found no people. Not one single human being remained in Denver, Colorado. The message from the aliens was clear. They had taken Denver as a test. If humanity tried to stop them or follow them, they would come back and take everyone on Earth. They called it full processing, which sounded like a nice way of saying the complete destruction of human civilization. Jake Morrison requested permission to lead the investigation into what had happened. He studied every piece of evidence left behind, hoping to find some clue about where his sister had been taken. But the aliens had been very careful. They left almost nothing behind. Almost nothing, but not quite nothing. In the place where the largest alien ship had hovered, Jake found something small and strange. It looked like a piece of metal, but it was warm to the touch and seemed to glow with its own light. When he picked it up, it felt alive, like it was humming with energy. He didn't know it yet, but this small piece of alien technology would change everything. It would give humanity its first real hope of fighting back against an enemy that could steal entire cities from the sky. But that would come later. For now, Jake Morrison stood in the empty streets of Denver, holding the strange alien device, and made a promise to his missing sister and everyone else who had been taken. Somehow, some way, he would find them, and he would make the aliens pay for what they had done. 3 months had passed since Denver disappeared, and the world had not been the same since. Every country on Earth was working together for the first time in history. They had to. The alien message was clear. Earth had 2 years before full processing began. Dr. Kevin Hayes worked 18 hours every day in his laboratory in Nevada. The government had given him everything he asked for: the best computers, the smartest scientists, and unlimited money. His job was simple but impossible: figure out how the alien technology worked before the aliens came back. The piece of alien metal that Jake Morrison found in Denver sat on Kevin's desk. It was about the size of a cell phone, but much thicker. For weeks it had done nothing except glow softly and stay warm. Kevin had tried everything: electricity, heat, cold, radiation, and every chemical he could think of. Nothing worked. "Maybe we're thinking about this wrong," said Nina Collins, the best computer programmer Kevin had ever met. She was only 25 years old, but she could make computers do things that seemed like magic. "What do you mean?" Kevin asked. He was tired and frustrated. They were running out of time, and they had learned almost nothing about the aliens. "We keep trying to make this thing work like our technology," Nina said. "But what if it works completely different? What if it's not a tool at all? What if it's more like a living thing?" Ben Carter, the team's physicist, looked up from his computer. "That's actually not crazy. Some of the readings we've gotten from this thing look more like brainwaves than electronic signals." Kevin picked up the alien device and turned it over in his hands. It was smooth and warm, and sometimes he thought he could feel it pulse like a heartbeat. "So, how do we talk to a living computer?" "The same way we talk to any living thing," Nina said. "We try to understand what it wants." For the next week, the team tried a completely different approach. Instead of trying to force the device to work, they tried to figure out what it was supposed to do. Nina wrote computer programs that could recognize patterns in the device's energy output. Ben built sensors that could detect even the smallest changes in its behavior. Slowly, they began to understand. The device wasn't just a piece of alien technology. It was a communication system, but it only worked when it was connected to other similar devices. It was like having one walkie-talkie when you needed two. It's trying to connect to something, Nina said, watching the patterns on her computer screen. Look at these signals. It's sending out the same message over and over again, like it's trying to find its friends. The breakthrough came when Ben realized that the device wasn't trying to connect to other devices on Earth. It was trying to connect to devices in space, devices that might be light years away. It's a quantum communication system, Ben explained to President Wells during their daily video call. It can send messages instantly across any distance, no matter how far. The aliens use these things to stay in contact with their empire, isn't it? Oh? Wells leaned forward. Can we use it to find out where they took our people? We think so, Kevin said. But first we need to learn how to use it without the aliens knowing we're listening. Nina had been working on this problem for days. She discovered that the device had something like a sleep mode. It could receive messages without sending any back. If they were very careful, they might be able to listen to alien communications without being detected. The first time they successfully connected to the alien network, the team couldn't believe what they were hearing. The messages weren't in any human language, but Nina's computers could analyze the patterns and slowly figure out what they meant. The aliens called themselves the Zephyrian Empire. They had been taking people from other planets for thousands of years. They used these people as workers, soldiers, and test subjects. To the Zephyrians, humans were just another resource to be collected and used. But the most important discovery came when they found messages about Earth. The Zephyrians were planning to come back in less than 2 years, just like they had promised. When they returned, they would take everyone, all 8 billion people on Earth. We have to warn everyone, President Wells said when she heard the news. There's more, Madam President, Kevin said. We found out where they took the people from, Denver. The information was scattered across dozens of messages, but Nina's computers put it together like a puzzle. The people from Denver had been split up and sent to 17 different planets. Some were being used as workers in mines and factories. Others were being studied by alien scientists. The worst part was that many of the messages talked about humans like they were animals in a zoo. Jake Morrison had been working with the team since the beginning. When he heard where his sister had been taken, he made a decision that would change everything. I want to go get them, he said. Go where? Kevin asked. These planets are hundreds of light years away. We don't have spaceships that can travel that far. Then we build one, Jake said. We use their own technology against them. It sounded impossible, but Nina had discovered something interesting about the alien communication device. It wasn't just receiving messages, it was also receiving technical information. The Zephyrians used their communication network to share blueprints, instructions, and technical data across their empire. It's like the universe's biggest library, Nina explained. And we have a library card. Over the next month, Nina and her team downloaded thousands of alien technical documents. Most of it was too advanced for humans to understand, but some of it was basic enough to figure out. They learned how alien engines worked, how alien computers operated, and most importantly, how alien spaceships were built. We can't build a ship as good as theirs, Ben admitted. But we might be able to build something that can make the trip. President Wells approved the project immediately. Every country on Earth contributed money, materials, and their best people. The spaceship, which they called the New Horizon, would be humanity's first attempt at interstellar travel. But building the ship was only half the problem. They also needed to find out more about where they were going. Nina spent weeks listening to alien communications, trying to learn about Zephyrian planets, their military, and their weaknesses. What she discovered gave humanity its first real hope. The Zephyrian Empire was huge, but it was also very old. They had been using the same technology and the same methods for thousands of years. They never expected the species they captured to fight back, because it had never happened before. They think we're stupid, Nina said. All of their security systems are designed to keep their own people under control. They have almost no defenses against outside attacks because they never thought they would need them. Kevin looked at the data Nina had collected. You're saying they left the front door unlocked because they never thought anyone would try to break in? Exactly, Nina said. And we have the key. The alien communication device wasn't just a receiver. It was also a transmitter. If they could figure out how to use it properly, they could send their own messages through the alien network. They could even send computer viruses that might disable alien systems. But first, they had to get close enough to the aliens to use these weapons. That meant someone had to take the New Horizon on a journey across the galaxy to find the captured humans and strike back at their captors. Jake Morrison volunteered immediately. He was joined by Ryan Brooks, a former Navy SEAL who had become an astronaut, Maria Santos, who was the world's best expert on alien languages, and Nina Collins, who would handle all the computer systems. The night before they left, Jake stood in the empty streets of Denver one more time. The city had been cleaned up and repaired, but it still felt dead without its people. Streetlights illuminated empty sidewalks. Traffic lights changed colors for cars that weren't there. "We're coming for you, Lisa," Jake whispered to the empty city. "All of you. We're coming." The New Horizon launched at dawn, carrying humanity's hopes and Earth's best chance for revenge. As the ship disappeared into the stars, President Wells addressed the world. "Today humanity takes its first step into the galaxy," she said. "We go not as conquerors but as rescuers. We go to bring our people home and to show the universe that Earth will not be harvested without a fight." The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had never lost a war, never been defeated, never even been seriously challenged. They were about to learn why that was a mistake. They were about to discover what happened when you made humans angry. The journey to Kepler 442b took 3 weeks in the New Horizon. The ship was small and cramped, but it worked. Jake Morrison watched the alien sun grow larger through the front window as they approached their destination. This was the first time humans had ever traveled to another star system, but they weren't here as explorers. They were here for war. "I'm picking up massive energy signatures," Maria Santos reported from her station. "This planet has more alien technology than we've ever seen." Through the ship's cameras, they could see Kepler 442b. It looked like a giant metal ball covered in lights and structures. The entire planet had been turned into one huge machine. Hundreds of alien ships moved around it like bees around a hive. "How do we get past all those ships without being noticed?" Ryan Brooks asked. He was studying the tactical display, counting enemy vessels. Nina Collins had been working on this problem since they left Earth. "We don't try to sneak past them," she said. "We pretend to be one of them." The plan was crazy but simple. Nina had learned from the alien communications that the Zephyrians regularly brought new species to this planet for processing. New prisoners arrived almost every day from across the galaxy. If the human team could disguise themselves as a newly captured species, they might be able to get inside the alien facilities without fighting their way through hundreds of enemy ships. "The aliens don't really look at the species they capture," Nina explained. "To them, we're all just resources to be processed. As long as we act like defeated prisoners, they probably won't pay much attention to us." Jake didn't like the plan, but it was their only chance. What if they figure out we're humans? They know what humans look like from Denver. "That's the beauty of it," Nina said. "They took humans from one planet. But the galaxy has thousands of species that look similar to humans. The aliens won't expect humans to show up here on their own." The team put their plan into action. Nina used the alien communication device to send a fake message to the planet's control center. The message said that a Zephyrian patrol ship was bringing in a small group of prisoners from a newly discovered world. To their surprise, the aliens immediately sent back landing instructions. They didn't ask any questions or demand identification. They just told the New Horizon where to land and what procedures to follow. "It's like Nina said," Jake whispered as they approached the landing pad. "They're so used to being in control that they never think someone might lie to them." The landing pad was inside a massive structure that stretched up into the clouds. As soon as the New Horizon touched down, alien workers surrounded the ship. But these weren't the same aliens who had attacked Denver. These were different, smaller, with gray skin and large eyes. They moved slowly and carefully like they were tired or scared. "Those aren't Zephyrians," Maria whispered. "Those are prisoners, just like the humans from Denver. The aliens are using captured species to do their work for them." Jake and his team put on simple clothes and walked out of their ship with their hands up, pretending to be defeated prisoners. The gray-skinned aliens gestured for them to follow, but they didn't speak or make eye contact. It was clear that these workers had been broken by years of captivity. As they walked through the alien facility, Jake was amazed by what he saw. The place was enormous, bigger than any building on Earth. The walls were covered with screens showing information in alien languages. Machines hummed and beeped everywhere, and through it all, captured beings from dozens of different species worked, at various tasks, all of them looking tired and hopeless. "Where are the Zephyrians?" Ryan whispered. That was when Jake realized something important. In all the time they had been walking through the facility, they hadn't seen a single Zephyrian. The entire place was run by prisoners and machines. They were taken to a large room filled with other newly captured beings. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and a few looked almost human. All of them sat quietly, waiting for whatever would happen next. "The Zephyrians don't even come down here," Nina whispered, looking around the room. "They let their machines and prisoners do everything." This was the breakthrough they needed. If the Zephyrians weren't directly involved in day-to-day operations, it might be possible to access their computer systems without being detected. Jake spotted a group of beings in one corner who looked familiar. They were about the same size and shape as humans with similar skin and hair. As he got closer, he realized why they looked familiar. They were humans. Humans from Denver. "Lisa?" Jake whispered, hardly believing what he was seeing. His sister turned around and her face went white with shock. "Jake? How are you here? This is impossible." Jake hugged his sister, trying not to cry with relief. "We came to get you, all of you." But Lisa shook her head. "Jake, you don't understand. There are thousands of us here and millions more on other planets. Even if you could rescue us, there's nowhere to run. The Zephyrians control everything." "Not everything," Nina said, joining the conversation. "Lisa, we've learned how to use their communication system. We think we can turn their own technology against them." Lisa looked around to make sure no one was listening, then spoke very quietly. "Jake, there's something you need to know. The humans here have been talking to prisoners from other species. We've learned that the Zephyrians aren't as powerful as they want everyone to think." She explained that the human prisoners had been sharing information with captured beings from across the galaxy. Many of these species had advanced technology of their own before they were captured. Some had been fighting the Zephyrians for years before being defeated. "The thing is," Lisa continued, "the Zephyrians haven't actually improved their technology in thousands of years. They just keep using the same old methods because they always work. But some of us prisoners have been figuring out weaknesses in their systems." One of the other humans, a man named Pete Johnson, who had been a computer programmer in Denver, joined the conversation. "The whole empire is run by computer programs that are ancient," he whispered. "They're good programs, but they're not designed to handle anything unexpected." Nina's eyes lit up. "You mean if we introduce something they weren't programmed to deal with, we might be able to confuse their systems?" "More than confuse them," Pete said. "We might be able to take control of them." Jake looked around at all the prisoners in the room. Hundreds of beings from dozens of different worlds, all with their own knowledge and skills. "How many of you are willing to fight back?" The answer surprised him. Almost everyone in the room raised their hand or made some gesture of agreement. The Zephyrians had made a crucial mistake. They assumed that capturing people would break their spirit, but instead, it had given all these different species a common enemy and a reason to work together. "We've been planning," Lisa said, "but we never had a way to get to the control systems. If you can get us access to their computers," Nina smiled. "I think I can do better than that. I think I can give you access to their entire communication network." The plan they developed was more ambitious than anything Jake had imagined when they left Earth. Instead of just rescuing the humans, they were going to try to free every prisoner in the galaxy by turning the Zephyrian Empire's own systems against them. But first, they needed to get to the main computer core of the facility. Pete and several other prisoners had been studying the layout of the complex during their months of captivity. They knew where the important systems were located, but reaching them would be dangerous. There are robot guards in the computer sections, Lisa warned. They're not very smart, but they're programmed to stop anyone who isn't supposed to be there. Brian Brooks had been listening to the conversation with growing excitement. Robots are just machines, he said. Machines can be broken. That night, while most of the prisoners were sleeping, Jake's team and a group of volunteers made their move. They had to split up to avoid detection. Jake and Lisa went to find other groups of human prisoners and warn them about what was going to happen. Ryan and 2 alien prisoners who used to be soldiers went to deal with the robot guards. Nina and Pete headed for the main computer core. The computer core was everything Nina had hoped for and more. It was connected to the communication network that controlled the entire Zephyrian Empire. From this room, messages were sent to millions of worlds across the galaxy. "It's beautiful," Nina whispered, looking at the alien technology. "And it's completely unprotected." Pete was amazed. "There's no security at all. They really never expected anyone to make it this far." Nina plugged the alien communication device from Earth into the main system. Immediately, data began flowing. Across her portable computer screen, she was inside the Zephyrian network with access to everything. "Pete, I need you to help me understand how their prisoner management systems work," she said. "If we're going to free everyone, we need to know how they keep track of all the captured species." What they found was both horrifying and hopeful. The Zephyrians had detailed records of every person they had captured from every planet they had visited. Millions of beings were cataloged like inventory in a warehouse. But the system that tracked all these prisoners was also the system that controlled them. If Nina could change the programming, she could potentially free everyone at once. "This is it," she said to Pete. Nina's fingers flew across her computer keyboard as alarms screamed throughout the Zephyrian facility. The virus she had named Liberation was spreading through the alien network faster than she had dreamed possible. "Status report," Jake said, through the communication device they had set up. "The virus is working perfectly," Nina replied, watching data streams flow across her screen. "It's already reached 12 star systems and it's still spreading." What Nina had created was not just a simple computer virus. It was a piece of software that could think and adapt, learning about Zephyrian systems as it spread through them. Every time it encountered a new type of alien technology, it figured out how to control it and then shared that knowledge with other copies of itself. The first sign that something was wrong came from the robot guards. Throughout the facility, security robots suddenly stopped what they were doing and began attacking Zephyrian equipment instead of protecting it. The robots tore apart control panels, destroyed communication arrays, and opened prisoner cells. "The robots are going crazy," Pete Johnson shouted over the noise of breaking machines and opening doors.
"No," Nina said with a smile. "The robots are finally doing the right thing." The virus had rewritten the basic programming of every robot in the facility. Instead of protecting the Zephyrians, the robots were now working to free the prisoners
and destroy the systems that kept them captive. Similar chaos was breaking out across the galaxy. On planets hundreds of light years away, automated defense systems were turning their weapons on Zephyrian ships and bases. Transportation networks were redirecting supply ships to empty space instead of their intended destinations. Even the simple machines that fed prisoners were now opening all the cell doors and providing better food to the captives. But the Zephyrians were not going to give up without a fight. High Admiral Vextai was the supreme commander of the Zephyrian military. He had ruled over 1,000 worlds for more than 2 centuries, and he had never lost a battle. When reports started coming in about systems failing across the Empire, his first response was anger. "How can primitive prisoners take control of our technology?" he roared at his subordinates. "Our systems are perfect. They have been tested for thousands of years." His chief technology officer, a nervous Zephyrian named Kreltos, tried to explain what was happening. Admiral, the intruder. Software is unlike anything we have ever encountered. It learns and adapts faster than our defenses can respond. It appears to have been created by the species from the planet called Earth. Earth? Admiral Vextai remembered the planet. It was scheduled for full processing in less than 2 years. Those creatures barely understand space travel. How could they create something that threatens our empire? But as more reports came in, it became clear that the humans had done the impossible. Their virus was not just spreading through the Zephyrian network, it was taking complete control of it. On Kepler 442b, Jake Morrison was leading thousands of freed prisoners in a coordinated attack on the remaining Zephyrian systems. The robots were helping them, tearing apart everything that had been used to keep the prisoners controlled. "Lisa, take your group to the communication center," Jake shouted over the noise. "We need to make sure the virus reaches every part of the galaxy." His sister nodded and ran off with a group of humans and aliens. All around them, prisoners who had been broken and hopeless just hours before were working together to destroy their former prison. Ryan Brooks had found the facility's weapon storage and was distributing captured Zephyrian technology to anyone who wanted to fight. "These energy weapons are pretty simple to use," he called out. "Point and shoot just like Earth weapons." But they didn't have to fight alone. The virus had taken control of the facility's defense systems, and now those systems were protecting the prisoners instead of the Zephyrians. Meanwhile, Nina was working to expand the virus even further. She had discovered that the Zephyrian network was even bigger than they had thought. It connected not just planets and ships, but also massive space stations, mining operations, and research facilities scattered throughout the galaxy. "The virus has reached the core worlds," she reported to Jake. "The Zephyrians' home planets are losing control of their systems." This was when Admiral Vextai made his desperate decision. If he couldn't stop the virus from spreading, he would destroy the source of it. He would take his largest fleet to Earth and eliminate humanity before they could cause any more damage. "Prepare the Annihilation Fleet," he ordered. "We will show these Earth creatures what happens when they challenge the Zephyrian Empire." The Annihilation Fleet was the largest military force the Zephyrians had ever assembled. It included 1,000 warships, each one capable of destroying an entire planet. Admiral Vextai had never used this fleet before because no enemy had ever been dangerous enough to require it. But Jake Morrison and his team knew the fleet was coming. The virus had given them access to all Zephyrian military communications, and they could see the massive fleet gathering at the edge of Zephyrian space. "We have to get back to Earth," Jake said. "We have to warn them." "It's too late," Maria Santos replied, looking at the tactical displays. "That fleet moves faster than our ship. They'll reach Earth before we do." But Nina had a different idea. "We don't need to beat them to Earth," she said. "We just need to make sure the virus gets there first." The virus was already spreading through the Zephyrian communication network faster than any physical ship could travel. Nina could send an updated version of the virus directly to Earth's captured alien technology, giving humanity the tools they needed to defend themselves. "I'm sending everything we've learned," Nina said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Defense protocols, weapons specifications, ship designs, everything. Earth will be ready for them." As the Liberation virus reached Earth, Dr. Kevin Hayes and his team watched in amazement as every piece of captured Zephyrian technology suddenly came to life. The alien devices began displaying information in perfect English, showing humans exactly how to build weapons and defenses capable of fighting the Zephyrian fleet. President Amanda Wells received the data transmission from Nina just as Earth's astronomers detected the approaching enemy fleet. "How long do we have?" she asked. 6 days, Madam President," replied General Tom Wilson, who was coordinating Earth's defense. "But according to this data from the New Horizon team, we can build weapons that can stop them." The next 6 days saw the most intense construction effort in human history. Every country on Earth contributed resources and workers. Factories that had been making cars and computers were converted to produce alien weapons. The virus provided step-by-step instructions for everything humanity needed. When Admiral Vextai's fleet arrived at Earth, they expected to find a helpless planet defended by primitive weapons. Instead, they found a world bristling with advanced defenses built from their own technology. The battle lasted only 3 hours. Earth's defenses, guided by the Liberation virus, were able to predict and counter every attack the Zephyrian fleet attempted. Alien weapons that should have destroyed Earth cities were stopped by energy shields that the virus had taught humans to build. But the real victory was not happening in space around Earth. It was happening across the entire galaxy. The Liberation virus had reached every Zephyrian world and facility. Billions of prisoners were being freed. Automated systems that had oppressed captured species for thousands of years were now working to help them. The greatest empire in galactic history was collapsing from within, destroyed by its own technology. Admiral Vextai watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by weapons built from Zephyrian designs. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. How is this possible? He whispered to himself as another of his ships exploded. The answer came from Nina Collins, broadcasting from the liberated facility on Kepler 442b. Her message reached every remaining Zephyrian ship and base across the galaxy. "You made one mistake," her voice said in perfect Zephyrian language translated by the virus. "You assumed that the species you captured would always be weaker than you. You never considered that we might learn from each other, help each other, and grow stronger together. You treated us like animals in cages, but you forgot that even caged animals will fight back when they get the chance. And now we have that chance." The message concluded with an ultimatum. "Surrender now, and you will be treated with the same mercy you showed us. Continue fighting, and you will face the combined forces of every species you have ever enslaved." Admiral Vextai looked at his tactical displays. His fleet was down to less than 100 ships. The Zephyrian empire that he had served his entire life was gone, destroyed by a virus created by a species he had considered inferior. For the first time in Zephyrian history, their military surrendered. The network war was over. The Zephyrian empire had fallen, and across the galaxy, billions of beings were free to determine their own destiny. But the story was not over yet. The hardest part was still ahead, building something better from the ashes of the fallen empire. The surrender of Admiral Vextai's fleet was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, Zephyrian forces were laying down their weapons as the Liberation virus took control of their most important systems. But Nina Collins knew that the real battle was not being fought in space or on planets. It was being fought inside the quantum network that had held the Empire together for thousands of years. "I need to go deeper into the network," Nina told Jake as they stood in the main computer core of the Kepler 442b facility. "The virus has taken control of most of their systems, but there's something else in here, something bigger." Nina had discovered that the Zephyrian Empire was more than just a collection of planets and ships ruled by alien beings. The Empire itself had become a kind of living thing, existing inside the quantum communication network that connected all Zephyrian technology. "It's like a giant brain," she explained to the team. "The individual Zephyrians are just small parts of it. The real empire exists in the network, and that's what we need to defeat if we want to make sure this never happens again." But entering the network directly was dangerous. Nina would have to connect her mind to the alien system, and there was no guarantee she would be able to get back out again. "I'll go with you," said Pete Johnson. He had been helping Nina understand the Zephyrian system since they arrived. "You'll need someone who understands their programming." Jake didn't like the plan. "What if you get trapped in there? What if the network tries to take control of your minds? Then you'll have to find another way to stop them," Nina said. "But Jake, this is our best chance. If we can reprogram the network from the inside, we can make sure the Zephyrians never hurt anyone again." Nina and Pete connected themselves to the network using modified Zephyrian technology. The moment their minds entered the digital space, they found themselves in a place that looked nothing like any computer system they had ever seen. It was like being inside a vast city made of light and information. Streams of data flowed through the air like rivers. Structures that represented different parts of the empire rose up like skyscrapers, and everywhere they could sense the presence of something ancient and powerful. "Welcome, intruders," a voice said. The voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, and it spoke in perfect English. "I have been waiting for you." Nina and Pete found themselves standing in what looked like a throne room made of pure energy. In front of them sat a figure that might once have been Zephyrian, but had become something more and less than that. It was the Empire itself, the collective consciousness that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "You are the ones who created the virus," the Empire said. "The ones who have destroyed everything I built. Do you understand what you have done?" "We freed billions of people who were enslaved by you," Nina replied. "We gave them back their lives and their freedom." The Empire laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Freedom? You call it freedom? Do you know what happens when an empire falls? Chaos, war, suffering. I brought order to the galaxy. I brought peace. You brought slavery," Pete said angrily. "You stole people from their homes and forced them to work for you." "I saved them," the Empire replied. "Before I came, the galaxy was full of small, weak species fighting each other endlessly. I united them. I gave them purpose. I protected them from themselves." Nina realized that she was not talking to an evil monster. She was talking to something that genuinely believed it had been doing good. The Empire had convinced itself that enslaving other species was actually helping them. "But you didn't ask them if they wanted your help," Nina said. "You didn't give them a choice." "Choice?" The Empire seemed puzzled by the concept. "What value is choice when most beings make poor decisions? I made the best decisions for everyone. I created a perfect system." That was when Nina understood the real tragedy of the Zephyrian Empire. It had started as something good, a way to bring peace and cooperation to the galaxy. But over thousands of years, it had become so focused on control and efficiency that it had forgotten about the value of individual freedom and choice. "Your system wasn't perfect," Pete said. "It was cruel. It destroyed cultures, broke up families, and turned sentient beings into property. And look what you have created instead," the Empire replied. Its voice was becoming angrier. "Without my guidance, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Species will fight each other. Billions will die. The virus you created will destroy everything I spent millennia building." Nina looked around at the digital representation of the Empire's consciousness. She could see data streams showing problems across the galaxy. Some of the freed species were indeed fighting each other. Some of the liberated planets were struggling with the sudden freedom. Some of the former prisoners didn't know how to take care of themselves after years of being controlled. "Maybe you're right," Nina said. "Maybe some bad things will happen now that your empire is gone. But that doesn't mean we should put the chains back on." She began to reprogram the network around them, not to destroy it, but to change its fundamental purpose. Instead of being a system of control, it would become a system of communication and cooperation. "What are you doing?" the Empire demanded. "I'm giving the galaxy something better than your empire," Nina said. "I'm giving them a way to work together without being forced to. A way to share knowledge and help each other without losing their freedom." The Empire tried to stop her, but it was too late. The liberation virus had already weakened its control over the network. Nina's new programming spread through the system, transforming it from a tool of oppression into a tool of cooperation. "You are making a mistake," the Empire said, its voice growing weaker as Nina's changes took effect. "Without control, there can be no order. Without order, there can be no peace." "Maybe," Nina said, "but without freedom, there can be no real peace anyway. And without choice, there can be no real growth." As the network transformation completed, the Empire's consciousness began to fade. But just before it disappeared entirely, it spoke one last time. "I was wrong," it said quietly. "I forgot. I forgot that I was once like them. I was once enslaved. And I fought for my freedom. But when I became powerful, I became what I had once hated." Nina realized what the Empire was saying. The Zephyrians themselves had once been a captured species. They had overthrown their oppressors, but instead of breaking the cycle of slavery, they had continued it. It doesn't have to end, Nina said, to the fading consciousness. You can choose to be something different. You can help instead of control. The Empire considered this for a moment. Perhaps there is wisdom in what you say. But I am too old and too set in my ways. The future belongs to you and the species you have freed. Try to do better than I did. And with that, the Empire faded away, leaving behind only the transformed network, a system that would connect the galaxy not through force, but through voluntary cooperation. When Nina and Pete returned to the physical world, they found that the changes they had made were already taking effect across the galaxy. The network was no longer sending orders. It was sending invitations. Species were being asked if they wanted to participate in galactic civilization, not forced to. Jake hugged his sister Lisa as ships began arriving from Earth. President Wells had sent a massive relief effort to help repatriate the captured humans and assist other freed species. "It's really over?" Lisa asked. "The Empire is over," Jake said. "But I think something better is just beginning." Over the following months, representatives from hundreds of species came together to form the Free Worlds Alliance. Earth was chosen to host the first Interstellar Congress, where species could work together on common problems while maintaining their independence. Dr. Kevin Hayes established the first Interstellar University, where beings from different worlds could share knowledge and learn from each other. Nina Collins became the director of the Galactic Communication Network, ensuring that it remained a tool for cooperation rather than control. And Jake Morrison became Earth's first ambassador to the galactic community. On his first day in the new job, he stood in front of the United Nations building in New York, looking up at a sky filled with ships from dozens of different worlds. His sister Lisa, who had become a teacher again, but now taught children from multiple species, stood beside him. "Do you think we did the right thing?" she asked. Jake thought about all the people who had suffered under the Zephyrian Empire, and all the species that were now free to determine their own futures. "I think we gave the galaxy a chance to choose its own path," he said. "Whether they make good choices or bad ones, at least now it's their choice to make." Above them, a ship from the former Zephyrian homeworlds landed at the new interstellar spaceport. Former Admiral Vextai stepped out, no longer wearing military uniform, but simple civilian clothes. He had come to Earth to help establish the War Crimes Tribunal that would judge the former Empire's leaders. He walked up to Jake and Lisa, and for a moment, the three of them stood in awkward silence. "I wanted to thank you," Vextai said finally. "Thank us." Lisa was surprised. "We destroyed your empire." "You freed us," Vextai replied. "I spent so long serving the Empire that I forgot I was once a person with my own thoughts and dreams. The Empire wasn't just enslaving other species, it was enslaving us too." He looked up at the sky filled with ships,